7 signs that your vibration is about to skyrocket, that you're about to go through a quantum leap in your spiritual evolution. Now, just to preface this video, the first 5 you may not relate to perfectly. It's all about 6 and 7. Number 6 and number 7 are the biggest indicators, hands down, that you're about to go through a huge shift in your own vibrational frequency. Number 1, you've been feeling extra sensitive lately. I say extra sensitive because you probably already consider yourself a fairly sensitive person. And I don't mean sensitive like you're crying all the time and your feelings get hurt easily. What I mean by that is that your vibrational, we'll say your aura, is easily and oftentimes penetrated by any type of energy or emotion that is kind of like in contradiction to it, more in particular, lower than it. So heavy moods, anger, fear, energy of any type, fear expressed in any form, as just an example, you feel it in your body. And it seems to have kind of like a negative impact, like you absorb a little bit of it, it kind of brings your own frequency down, and you just feel very sensitive. Now, as I always say in my videos, that sensitivity, even though it's kind of like a thing to be managed and contended with, it's also the reason you are able to continue growing so rapidly as a spiritual being. Because that sensitivity is synonymous with awareness. And that awareness, even though it can be kind of a pain in the butt sometimes, it allows you to make increasingly more and more conscious choices, wiser choices, better decisions. And those little choices, they start to add up. And that's what really starts to take our life to a new level. So even though you're normally sensitive, during these periods where you're about to really notice a massive shift, not only in how you feel, but also in your external reality, we tend to kind of go through a phase where we're more sensitive. And this can kind of create the illusion that you're falling backwards in your spiritual growth, but it's actually the opposite. Number 2, due to this sensitivity, you're becoming more aware of your own unconsciousness. Things you're doing in your life, in your day-to-day flow, the way you're responding to people, the things you're investing your energy into, all of a sudden you might start to be kind of reevaluating it and asking yourself, wow, almost like there's almost a tendency to be a little disappointed. Like, man, I know better. I know better than to zone out in front of the TV and eat ice cream before bed. It's something I'm talking to myself a little bit. It's something I grew up doing. But all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is just not me. This is kind of an unconscious habit driven by conditioned impulses that have absolutely nothing to do with who I'm aspiring to be, the person I've already grown into. So why am I doing it? I noticed this just the other day as me and my family, my wife and I and my kids, we've been going room to room, decluttering. And as I go through these drawers and these kids' closets, I realize how unconscious a lot of our spending is. In particular, with my children at Christmas time. They have an overabundance of random plastic. Without going on to a tangent, it's always been there. Their closets have been the way they are, but all of a sudden, because I'm more sensitive, because I'm changing, I'm seeing it now through a clearer lens and realizing that I don't want this anymore. I don't want to live like this. I don't want to eat ice cream at night anymore because it's making me feel like crap the next day and I'm gaining weight on the scale. And all of a sudden, you start to become kind of aware of a lot of your mistakes, you could say, a lot of the error in your ways all at once. And this combined with feeling super sensitive can seem like you're slipping into another dark night of the soul, but really you're just waking up. And this is what comes with it. Number 3, you're in right now, or you're just recently coming out of what I'll call a rough patch. You know, if you're watching my channel, by the way, you're probably already going through a spiritual awakening and you can relate with a lot of my videos, but a lot of the things I talk about is that we are always learning something. It almost seems like life is revealing to us these different lessons, and there are these different themes that seem to be whether we want them there or not, present in our life. Sometimes it's relationships. Sometimes it's with our career and purpose. Sometimes it's with our health. Sometimes we need to learn patience. All these different themes we find ourselves learning. And a lot of the times we can keep up the pace just fine. We have our natural, our average ups and downs throughout our life. But sometimes, usually right before a big breakthrough, we have like a down phase that seems to linger, seems to last a long time. You just can't find your positive momentum. You might feel like you're sort of disconnected spiritually. Sometimes it can feel like you were abandoned, like you did something wrong and you're like off your path. You're succumbing to these old lower behaviors more than usual. And the only reason you do that is because you feel you don't feel at peace in your body and your mind. And it's just this whole multifaceted misery, you could say, this dark night of the soul, this period where it feels like you're just in a rough patch. And this is like, I just came out of this myself, where I felt very overwhelmed with my life, like I had too much going on, but not enough energy and like positive presence to really deal with it effectively. So I was just kind of caught up in it. And this was leading me to overeating and all this indulgence and stuff like that. And it was one of those things where I was like waiting, when's the new moon gonna pass? When is this energy gonna lift? And it was about a 2-week period of me just really feeling kind of off my game. But I found, and this was the case with me now, why I'm inspired to make this video, is that whenever I go through these prolonged periods, at least for me, it seems like they're necessary. It seems like sometimes there's just a certain depth of purge of all this old stuff, old energy taking place. And for one, it takes time. Two, sometimes it requires a certain, I would say, amount of the awareness of what you don't want in your life to sufficiently inspire you to finally say, no, I'm done. I'm making a change. I'm quitting smoking. I'm quitting drinking. I'm going to the gym. I'm doing whatever. So I find these periods, they're not fun. You got to kind of suck it up sometimes and learn what you can. But the catapult effect, the trampoline effect they have is absolutely profound. So if you're in it right now, remember that. You probably already intuitively feel this. And if you're just coming out of it, then get ready, because you are who this video is for. Number 4, you start saying no to your lower impulses. It's very similar to overcoming an addiction, which, by the way, I've had many. I was a drug addict, a very serious drug addict. I used to smoke cigarettes, and those are pretty big right there. We'll just stop there. But anyway, every time I've quit anything like that I've had like a very ingrained relationship with something that's not good for me, but did in fact provide some temporary benefit or relief. As an example, I found that anytime I quit, there was never a way to avoid the inevitable period of just saying no to the cravings. And when I quit smoking cigarettes, it was like saying no 1,000 times a day, because if you were a smoker, you know any smokers, there's a million. So I had a cup of coffee. That's perfect time to have a smoke. I woke up, I ate, I went for a walk, I was stressed, I'm feeling good. Every occasion is good for this, to having a smoke. So my brain had all these associations, and I had to build up a momentum of saying no. I'm gonna drink the coffee, and I'm not gonna smoke, even though I don't feel good. Even though I have to kind of sit with this unfulfilled desire in my body, this yearning for something, I have to sit with it. And you might find yourself doing that. Maybe I'm not calling you all addicts, but this phenomena can happen with anything. I notice it with my job. When I first wake up, my impulse is to get on the computer and check things out. But I fight that now. I go outside and I meditate and I do yoga and I take my time. But there's that feeling of wanting to do something I know is not good for me. And if you find yourself kind of getting sick of being just like a slave to these conditioned impulses, many of these conditionings aren't even something you chose to do. It's just like behaviors, your parents that you just adopted and now are yours. But regardless, you might just get fed up and say, like, I don't want to be a slave. I want to be free in my life. And you might find yourself starting to say no to the different things in your life that are weighing you down. And number 5, if you're not doing number 4, then number 5 will come into play. What I wrote down here is that any behavior out of alignment with the new you, the person you've already grown into, is going to drive you crazy. It's no longer tolerable. You're going to feel the effects times 10 until you finally start saying no and start making new choices. You're going to suffer. And I've experienced this many times on my awakening, and it can kind of sneak up on you. Because for a time, we can only like learn and progress so quickly. So sometimes it's not about changing everything about our life all at once, but when something becomes relevant to let go of, that will be the thing that for a while you may have skated by, minimal consequences, at least that you are aware of, and all of a sudden it's like, nope, ain't gonna happen. Spirit's saying, you're done. You're done. There's too much of a gap between your frequency and the frequency of this thing. And you keep trying to, it's like oil and water. You keep trying to mix it, it's gonna be a mess. You just can't do it. Or you can, but you're gonna suffer so much. It's a no-brainer decision to finally say, no, I'm done. So maybe you're finding that. Maybe you're kind of working yourself up to start saying no to these things and relate to this previous point, number 5 I just said. Either way, it's on its way out. It's no longer in harmony with the person you've grown into. Unless you plan on devolving and descending back into the old you, which will be way worse, it's time to really start saying no to those lower impulses as best you can. Number 6, as I said, is a big one. And it is. You're finally starting to see your true worth. And this is a fantastic thing to happen to a person, obviously. But when you wake up to your value, to your worth, and you really start loving yourself the way you maybe always should have, that can sometimes require a lot of different situations change in your life. The imbalances in your relationship, the imbalances in your life situation, the imbalances in how you're treating yourself, the things you're doing to yourself. All of a sudden you're like, I don't deserve this, or this, or this, or this, or this. And even though it's a very positive thing, there can be sometimes a rearrangement phase that must go down that isn't necessarily fun, like setting a boundary with a needy friend, or breaking like a bad habit, as I was talking about earlier, or demanding you get paid more by your boss, or finding in a different situation because it ain't gonna work. You now know your worth. You can't pretend you don't. And changes must take place. But these changes, these new choices sprung from one who finally knows themselves, that is what's going to help you create an environment, a life scenario on all levels that is supportive of your flourishing vibrational frequency, which is why it has such a dramatic impact on it. And number 7, equally as important as number 6, you finally stopped being so hard on yourself. Everyone's vibration, it wants to be high. It's like natural. There's all this collective energy on the planet also, in a sense, sort of like trying to like raise us up big time. And it's us and our shame and our guilt and that nasty inner critic that tries to weigh us down. But as we start to realize our true worth, and we realize that, you know what? I'm allowed to make a mistake. I've only acted out of the level of consciousness I was at. And I am more awake now. So if this version of me was in the past, it would have made different choices. But it wasn't. The version of me that made those mistakes was a version that was doing the best they could. Just like I'm doing now. Just like everybody doing. And it just starts to click with you. You just start to really be like more loving and easier on yourself. Not push yourself so hard, not make the expectations so ridiculously over the top. It's good to shoot for the stars, but not if you keep burning yourself out and exhausting yourself and like setting yourself up for failure, which a lot of us do. And that's another way we sabotage ourselves. You finally start to wake up to all of that nonsense and accept the fact that every day is different. Every day is a new day. Some days are gonna be amazing, some days are not gonna be amazing. And the ones that are not, you'll learn from. The mistakes you make, you will learn, you will bounce back from. That's a guarantee. So regardless, as you start being your own cheerleader and not needing mom and dad's approval when you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and you realize, oh, I can judge, I can assess whether my performance at life is up to par on any given day. I don't need the outside world to. I don't need mom and dad to. I don't need my inner critic, which will never be satisfied. My soul, it can decide what's right. And what you'll find is that your whole life you've been doing a good job. I know you've done things. I'm saying you've done a good job, given the cards you were dealt. We all have. This is not an easy circumstance we find ourselves in. These are not easy lessons to learn, even as an infinite soul. They're not easy. They're tricky. A lot of times we find ourselves these problems and there's no solution out there. We go online and it's just our God or higher whatever has made it so this particular situation can only be solved by you. And then we just do our best. Sometimes we guess, we get a fall, and then we learn and we grow, but it's like the school of hard knocks, this earth school you've chosen to come to. And you wouldn't have chosen if you couldn't handle it. You wouldn't have chosen if you were some newbie soul. No, you came here because you wanted to pass you wanted like the master class, and well, now you're in it. But you have to acknowledge it's a master class. It ain't no joke. It ain't no picnic. And it's hard enough without us being hard on ourselves for absolutely no reason. And you might just find yourself not doing that so much. And when you can start to support yourself and love yourself truly, celebrate your wins and victories and say, God, that was good. Good job, Vic. You start to build up this self-esteem. This part of you that knows it can live an amazing life. Part of you that knows it deserves to be happy and fulfilled and abundant. And this 6 and 7 start to snowball and accelerate your awakening. You're progressing through life in a way that is unprecedented. And if you relate to even some of those signs, then you are on this path right now.